We're live.
And Sandy, I'm sorry, Brittany,
Yes.
we set up a new YouTube account.
Okay, good.
But I need to confirm it with a phone number. And I was hoping we could use your state cell.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't use my office line. We still haven't configured getting it moved over. It's still somebody else's voicemail, and I have not had any access to it.
Okay.
I need to pull it off of my email actually because of that.
Good morning, Mr. Burris. We haven't met yet. My name is Brandon Ross. I'm the fiscal manager and I'm running the meeting. So.
Okay, Brandon, good morning. You hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Good.
I did a couple stints at Kentucky State University, but I don't think I was there when you were there. I was there in between, I think.
Okay.
And Brandon, this doesn't say we're recording yet, just that we're live.
That's right. I'm getting ready to start the recording.
How is everyone?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Doing fine.
Good.
Get your coffee, Marianne. Oh, we can't hear you.
Marianne, I emailed you the YouTube link for the Facebook page.
I was posting it, and it is posted, and the coffee's brewing, Brittany, so come on over.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. The computer demons are after me this morning.
So Tim, you're sideways for some reason.
Am I? Let me see.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
story of my life.
Brenda made me able. There you go.
All right.
Okay, it's 9 a.m. so it's meeting time. I guess I'm called to order this meeting of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. Our first item on the agenda is the oath of office for Commissioner Henry. I'm looking around to see where you are. Where's she on? Yeah.
She's not
here.
on yet.
Okay. While we're waiting, going here, let's go on to the next item, the two items, which is one, the confirmation of quorum, and then also confirmation of public notice. Terrence.
I'm still counting, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe we do have a quorum, and public meeting or public notice was sent. I'm also looking to see if Commissioner Henry, I got a notification that she was signed in, but
Can you guys hear me? Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Commissioner Cole, we can't hear you.
I don't.
Hello? It's showing on here that it should be on.
We can hear you.
Huh?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can? Okay, thank you.
Okay, somebody gonna check on whether Commissioner Henry is going to join us. You say she appeared. I don't see her. At least by the names of the people who are signed in, do not see her. But anyway, we do have a quorum, and there's been confirmation of the notice. I guess before we begin into the agenda in more detail, there are several things I guess I'd like to say. First of all, let me say to each of you, I'm thankful to have the opportunity to be joining you in this commission. The commission work is important and it's impactful, and that we're all here to get that work done. And so I'm happy to be joining you. I'm a big believer in process and procedures and adherence to statutes, bylaws, and Robert's rules. All of those things to me are essential for a good operation and work. And so from my perspective, we will follow them very closely. The reason I'm here is that I have no agendas, no directions given, but I'm here because I believe in what the commission does and I'm willing to work to make that happen. I also am here and have had a great reputation in terms of my integrity. And my integrity is absolutely important and essential to everything I do, everything I believe in. And because I am, in fact, a licensed practicing attorney in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, have a higher responsibility in terms of my the code of professional conduct, which will do that. So as I say to you all, my integrity is important. Your integrity is important. And so as we work together is that I will make certain that I don't impugn anyone's integrity. And the expectation is that the same will be given. And then sort of in the immortal words of Mike Pence from a little over 2 weeks ago when the Senate reconvened, and he said at that point, after all of the insurrection and all of the things, let's get to work and do the commission's work. So I'm happy to be joining you. I guess our first item up is, in fact, the public participation. And I don't know how that process works or whether we have anybody signed up or people allowed to just?
We have one person wishing to speak.
And who is that, Terrence?
So Sandra Grace is wishing to speak as a citizen.
Okay, Ms. Grace, you're now up. We cannot hear you.
Yes. Let's see. Alt.
You're on.
Now
Now you're not.
You're on. Can't
You're
hear you.
muted again. We cannot hear you.
Can't hear you.
No, cannot hear you. Says you're muted.
Okay.
There, now
Hi,
you're
good
on.
morning.
We hear you.
Everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I am addressing you all today as just a civilian, but I am the clerk for the commission. I've worked there since May of 2018. It's been my pleasure to serve the Commonwealth. And I thank you all for the work that you have done, the ones of you that have been there. And I would like to say even I'm excited to work with the new ones of you that are there now. I come to you this morning. I know I've only got a quick 5 minutes to just bring information to you. It's not to try to push you in any direction or ask for any result. I just have some concerns that I would like for you to allow me to bring to you for the next 5 minutes. And public speaking is very hard for me. So I ask that you please be patient with me. This is not my forte. I'm a very anxious person. So speaking to crowds is not my idea of a great morning, but I'll be as quick and thorough as I can. And if you need any additional information, please reach out to me. So what I'm here about this morning is I was notified on January 6th by my direct supervisor and executive director, Mr. Sullivan, about the appointment of Mr. Burse as chair. Mr. Burse had no immediate bell in my head that went off that I knew who he was, other than I had overheard conversations with employees that he was a close friend of our previous executive director, Mr. Johnson. And their relationship is a friendship. When he was appointed as a commissioner, had no concern brought forward in me. I realized that he was a piece of a bigger pie. But when Mr. Sullivan informed me that he was now appointed as chair, I was a little bit concerned about that. And then I remembered seeing the name before, and where I have recognized that name before, to enlighten all you all, is on the page 19 of the personnel report, which stemmed from allegations that I made involving the agency while it was under the direction of Mr. Johnson in August of 2019, which led to a personnel action. I also provided information to the Attorney General's office, the exact same allegations in January of 2020. And I also provided the same information and allegations to individuals of Dean Dorton, who performed the forensic audit. So this has been a 1.5 year process for me of doing a lot of extracurricular work, not wanting to impede on the Commonwealth with the work that I do for the commission normally. It's been very taxing and stressful, and I know that the commissioners who oversaw it have also felt that weight. So it's very important to me. So that is why I'm here today. So the sentence that is within page 19 of the report, if I could read it to you, is pretty clear. It was not written by me. It was written by the attorney for the personnel cabinet of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Her name is Catherine Stevens. She's been an attorney in the Commonwealth since the early 90s, practicing. And the statement within page 19, and I have this document and everything that I will reference this morning uploaded, and I am prepared to send it to all of the commissioners by email. So if that is something that you all would like, all you need to say is, yes, we would like that. And it's your discretion whether or not to go into closed.
Let me say in regards to that, if there's something that you want to distribute to the commission, and I'm going to talk later about that, is you can give it to the executive director who will distribute it to the commissioners.
Certainly. And I have provided this by Mr. Sullivan by email already. I'm not one to blindside people. I wanted him to be very aware of the concerns that I was bringing forward so we could have time to sit down and discuss them together before we got to the meeting. So all documents that I'm referencing have been distributed to Mr. Sullivan, as well as Mr. Ross and several other staff. So the document I'm referencing is in the agency's possession. It's page 19 of the 25-page report, where Ms. Catherine Stevens, once again, Commonwealth attorney for 30 years, wrote, Mr. Johnson was interviewed via Zoom video conference with his attorney, comma, Honorable Raymond Burse in attendance.
Just a minute.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask you to please be mindful to not discuss personnel issues.
And this isn't a personnel issue at all. Thank you, though.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, this is a stated fact. This document is I'm assuming open to open records. This is a statement written by Catherine Stevens, the staff attorney for the Personnel Cabinet of Kentucky. One sentence that I reference, which is Mr. Johnson was interviewed via Zoom video conference with his attorney, the Honorable Raymond Burse. So obviously, I'm not disagreeing with anybody's decision to appoint Mr. Burse. I have strong concern that he has a conflict of interest. These allegations were part of the same allegations that went to the AG, the same allegations all by me, and also to Dean Dorton. The forensic audit report is set to be released or has been released any day, I don't know. But these are allegations. Like I said, I was willing to set aside the friendship with Mr. Johnson and maybe look past it. That was a coincidental occurrence. No one brought this information that Mr. Burse was Mr. Johnson's attorney to me. I had to discover that for myself after recollecting seeing the name within the report. When I asked the executive director about this, his response over and over again was, there's nothing that you can do. And that to me is not really a resolution. There's several executive orders in place that require the recusal of a professional who's involved in a conflict of interest with a client or previous client. And Mr. Terrence, Terrence has been very good to work with. And this issue, we just don't see eye to eye. So I'm asking the commission to assist me, to help me understand. Like I said, this sentence is not something that I wrote. This was wrote by the Commonwealth attorney. She's practiced law for 30 years here. She wrote that was Mr. Johnson's attorney. And I've been told repeatedly he didn't represent Mr. Johnson anything against the agency. And I'm confused because I work for this agency. There's only about 15 of us. So I am part of that agency. And his handling of the situation has caused me great anxiety. I asked to know when Mr. Yes.
Miss Grace, your 5 minutes are up.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
And just to be very clear in terms of when a conflict exists, until something is presented that presents a conflict, there is no conflict. And if you look at the Code of Professional Conduct, which I referenced earlier in regards to my obligation and in terms of what I know still, plus my integrity. So as it relates to that, I think that's where we are. You have nothing else to add. You had your 5 minutes. And so that is where we are. Okay. So the next item, has Ms. Henry joined us yet?
Did anyone else say anything on this? Or are we just bypassing this?
Well,
Henry did join us.
Is no one else can say anything on this, or are we bypassing this?
Well, I don't think it is a question of bypassing anything. She's put out that there is in fact a conflict, and I said there is no conflict. So given that, there is no issue to be raised to be discussed at this particular point in time. And as it relates,
none of us can have a comment on that?
You can comment.
Well, I'm just saying she raised concerns to where it seems like it's just being bypassed here with the conversation. And she's raised the issue. And it's not that anyone else has not had that issue. So, are we just bypassing that to say that's just what it is? Is this a situation where we have no input involved by being in the commission?
I guess as it relates,
we've all voiced that. Some of us have.
The commission has, or commissioners have no ability, if you look at the statute, to in fact change the appointment in regards to that. When a conflict is there and it presents itself, then that conflict needs to be presented and then appropriate action taken at that time. At this point, there has been presented no conflict.
Some of the conflict that we've been trying to present has been withheld, and we're not trying to act like none of this exists. So, what she's, what she's talking about here, some of us have already raised the concerns. So it's almost like the concerns are raised, but the issues are not going to be heard. So if we're not going to hear the issue and bypass it as if it doesn't mean anything, then where is the integrity of this commission to where we can't even listen to a person that has given us information? I mean, that's not how the integrity works when someone gives you information. I'm just trying to figure out how this is just going to be bypassed where what she says is going to be put to the side and no one has any conversation on it as if it doesn't exist. It does exist. You have to acknowledge that the concerns are not just with her. You have to acknowledge that.
Commissioner Cheney?
I would just like to see if I'm understanding the respective positions accurately, Chairman. As I understand what you're saying, until such time an issue is presented to the commission as it relates to the former executive director or any of the issues surrounding that situation, the commission's actions would not present any sort of a conflict. And at such time, we do address any issues related to the former executive director. Would that then, in your mind, present a conflict, and would you at that point recuse yourself? I'm trying to understand the mechanics.
Okay. If in fact the matter that is presented, it relates to specifically the former executive director or my representation of him at that point in time, there is a conflict. You can raise the conflict. The question is, how does the conflict get resolved at the time that it's raised? And it relates to what is the issue, what is the question at that particular point in time. So until then, there is no conflict.
I understand what you're saying. Okay, I understand that there is no conflict until the point at which something is raised.
Right.
My question is, at that point, would you then recuse yourself, or just help me to understand.
If there is a conflict presented, and it is in fact a conflict, then I have the obligation at that point in time to recuse myself from participation in that matter involved in this discussion and this resolution.
So I appreciate your explanation. I just want to ask everyone to please work in a spirit of unity and non-combativeness.
I'm sorry, what was that again? Well, the concerns that we all have are, as you say, Mr. Burse, you're on that fine line, you're understanding the law very well, and I'm not an attorney. But, when it comes to integrity, when it comes to doing the right thing, when it comes to the moral, fiber of what a committee is supposed to be, we're part of the Human Rights Committee. We're commission. We're not part of just a regular commission. So when we have people that come in and give us information and our integrity stands before what we're dealing with them on, our integrity has to be stood on the same ground. So, as you said before, if there's no issue that comes up, then there's no conflict. There's a conflict that you are a part of a circumstance that, the commission that was here before, some of the new ones, we know what it was hard to do what we did. So we understand that. And for you to walk in on that, it just, you can't be that not knowing that would have an effect on some of the commissioners. I just think that at this point you think that there is, but it doesn't matter. So that's what I want to get clear. It's because you're here and the circumstance we say that is a conflict, because we have those issues, you're saying it doesn't matter at this point. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm saying there is no conflict at this point, and because there is no matter before the commission as it relates to the former executive director. I also answered in terms of Ms. Cheney's question was that if a conflict is presented at that point in time, I have the option of reclusing myself from participation in that matter, in that discussion. And I think
you have that option. You have that option. So if you feel
Right.
like that's not an option, you're going to attend, you're going to make sure you're a part of that without recruiting. So you make that option of whether or not you should recruit yourself or not.
Well, the question is, it has to be a specific matter. It can't be a generality. And until there is a specific matter, there is no conflict.
Understood what you're saying, but that's where I'm taking it. It doesn't
Okay,
really matter
okay.
what we feel. But let's just
Okay.
move on with the meeting. But we will.
Commissioner
we
Randolph.
will come back up.
Commissioner Randolph had her hand up.
Sure. Okay.
Good morning. I think if I'm understanding what Commissioner Cole's concerns are, and possibly the employee that just spoke is, and I'm sure under new business we'll deal with this later, is that there's a great deal of concern as it relates to the audit or anything pertaining to Mr. Johnson's administration. So as I understand what you're saying, that when we reach that point in the agenda, at that time, you will decide whether or not you should participate in that dialogue as to whether or not it is a conflict of interest.
Let me respond with two things. Number one, from where I said, I know, for the record, I want to make certain is I no longer represent Mr. Johnson. Number two, Mr. Johnson's matter with the commission has been resolved. And number three is, if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Randolph, you and Mr. Johnson had a discussion regarding his word was, and that he concluded to you that he was moving on and going on with his life.
No.
Yep. Well, there's a letter to that effect.
Oh, then I'd love to.
Anyway, but anyway,
Nevertheless,
anyway,
nevertheless, the date that that I spoke with, for the record, I never received anything in writing stating that you had been appointed as chair. So a conversation that took place, and I also want the record to reflect, I've never been confused about the fact that I serve at the pleasure of the governor, just as you do. That at any point, the governor has the right to remove the individual that is serving as chair. So that's clear. But when I spoke with John McDonald, who is the executive director for boards and commissions, on December the 29th, Mr. McDonald stated that he had been informed by you that you had only assisted Mr. Johnson in writing a letter to the commission on his behalf in 2019, and that had been the extent of your participation. When I provided evidence that reflected that you had indeed been representing him as his attorney, Mr. McDonald then contacted you by phone, according to him, and stated that the audit was, when the audit is released or anything pertaining to Mr. Johnson, that you would have to recuse yourself. Mr. McDonald then called me back on December 29th, about 10 minutes later after the first call, and that he had just spoken with you and that he had explained to you that when the audit is released, which it was released January the 4th, that you would have to recuse yourself from that process and that you had agreed to do so. So I think we're the huge pink elephant that's in the room now that everyone is concerned about is the audit, because it was finalized on January the 4th, which now makes it subjective to open records request. And that based on that conversation with Mr. McDonald, he stated that you had agreed to recuse yourself. So if you can verify that, then I think that will possibly answer Commissioner Cole's concern.
Well, I think the answer to it is with the you gentlemen from the governor's office, I did not discuss any specific item or any audit. And in fact, didn't know there was in fact an audit of any of those things in terms of there. So as far as I'm concerned, until that's presented and at that point in time, whether there's a conflict, then I will address it at that time. So not having anything presented at this point, I consider that not an issue. And as I said before, I will address it when we get there. I think it's also, I think it's also, I think
it will have to be addressed today because the audit was finalized. The Attorney General's office, and this happened while I was still serving as chair. The Attorney General's office, Amy Burke, notified me on January the 4th that the audit was now okay.
Ms. Randolph, to be
first, let me finish, please. That it was okay for the audit to be moved from draft form to final form. I then contacted Nick Lynch, who has spearheaded the forensic audit that was conducted by Dean Dorton. So that audit was finalized on January the 4th, 21. What has been confusing is I still don't know the date that you were sworn in. My understanding that there was a Zoom meeting on January the 7th or 8th where you were sworn into office. I don't know who set that up, who actually attended, but anyway, because of that, and there's been no communication, that's the reason you're just finding out that the audit was actually finalized January the 4th. So
Ms. Randolph, let me
this board today as to what we do with this audit.
When we get to new business, we'll deal with that. Let me respond to several things that you said. Let's be very direct about it. Is number one is my appointment was effective as of December the 23rd, so that you know in terms of when the appointment was. And I think you were aware of that and had knowledge of that in regards to that. And I said, we'll deal with that at that point. I think the work of the commission is very important. We need to move on in terms of doing that. I think you've been heard in regards to that. And then we get to new business. And if that's under new business, that's going to come up to do that. I guess the second thing was, I guess, as you were saying, is that the audit is now a public record subject to the open records law. So anybody, anywhere can in fact have access to that and do that. As it relates to how the commission deals with it, handles with, is a commission matter, and we'll handle that when we get there. So thank you for that. Any comments, anything from any other commissioner before we move on?
Yeah, I have one more. Just a statement. I know we are all a little bit perplexed on how all of this transferred, and you have to be aware of that. I understand you are a person of facts and you are very clear with that. But as a human being, we understand that there are issues that we are not understanding, and we are in the right place to ask those questions. So just to put it on the record, we are confused on how all of this transferred. You have to believe that what actions happen is confusing for some of us. And to blow it off and act like it doesn't matter says a lot for how all of this transpired in the first place. So anything that we have done prior to you here, yes, we're trying to safeguard that. We do not want it to be intentional that someone comes in at your statue and takes what we've done for granted and blow it off like it doesn't mean anything. The things that we've done for the last year has been important, and it has hurt a lot of us personally to have to do what we've had to do. So we don't want to take that to be where it's just a process and then it's blown off and passed on to the next person and say, oh, I'm not going to stamp that, just move on. That's not the integrity that I thought this commission should be about. So that's my statement. And when we get to new business, hopefully we'll rectify some of these issues that we have, because they're going to still be there. Okay. So
okay.
I will allow the meeting to move on.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Commissioner Henry has now joined us.
I'm sorry, Chair. I believe Reverend Dr. Smith had his hand raised.
Okay. I didn't see that. Okay. Commissioner Smith, Frank.
I will just, let's just move on. And if I need to say it later, I will.
Okay. So I'm looking, I think I saw Commissioner Henry on early. Commissioner Henry?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, we need to administer the oath of office for you. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I will.
Okay. I do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be,
I do solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and this Commonwealth,
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky,
and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
so long as I consider to be a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully execute,
and I will faithfully execute,
to the best of my ability,
the best of my ability,
office of Commissioner of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights,
office of Commissioner on Commission of Kentucky Human Rights,
according to law.
According to law.
And I do further solemnly swear
And I do further solemnly swear
that since the adoption of the present Constitution,
since the adoption of the present Constitution,
I, being a citizen of this state,
I, being a citizen of this state,
have not fought a duel with deadly weapons
have not fought a duel of deadly weapons
within this state
within this state
or out of it,
or out of it,
nor have I sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have I acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted
and assisted
any person
any person
thus offending, so help me God.
so help me God.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I did have my Bible present.
Okay.
In case was needed, I had my left hand on it.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you for that, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
This important work. The next item on the agenda.
Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I want to just mention, I think we've gotten off on a rocky start, but I do feel that in all things, and that we are workers together, it would help if we could have just a brief period of introduction. And personally, I want to, as Vice Chair, welcome you, Dr. Burse, to the commission. And I also want to welcome Ms. Henry. And I don't know if just a little brief for both of you, just to introduce yourselves to the commission would be in order at this point. But I think that how we handle one another, in that we have a lot of work to do together, it would be good. And I hate for Ms. Henry especially to walk into this kind of a meeting as it has begun and take an oath under this kind of tone. So I just wanted to just interject this period here and hope that we could just take a few moments to hear a light introduction from you, Dr. Burse, and also from you, Ms. Henry, if that could be allowed.
That's fine. Ms. Henry, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Dr. Burse. I appreciate that. And I'm not a newbie and I'm not a young person. So please don't feel that I'm very excited about being a part of this commission. I've worked with the Human Rights Commission for many, many years. And prior to that, I have worked in many organizations in my part of the state, Northeastern Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky. We're far removed probably from everyone else, but we still fight the same battles. And the passion that I have
about being able to be a voice and to help someone else in any kind of way has always been very close to my heart. I do know a few people within the organization, I think, that are still participating in different ways. So it's nice to see familiar faces and names when I was reviewing my book. So I'm just very excited about the journey ahead, looking forward to the time that we can actually meet in person and not have to worry about muting and unmuting or being on the right site.
Yes, of
or technology I have done a lot with, but you know, you can't handle Wi-Fi. It doesn't always work when you expect it to. So if you bear with me with my technical deficiencies, don't think that there are deficiencies in the job that I will do, because I will always do my best. And as I said, I'm very excited about the time we can actually be together.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Henry. And I know that the commission welcomes you and welcomes your input in your work.
Thank you.
As it relates to me, as I say, my name is Raymond Burse. I am currently retired, not actively doing anything other than community service work. I guess I've had my experience has been, I am a licensed attorney in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Still maintain my license, even though I don't actively practice. I've spent 19 years in the General Electric Company at GE as the general counsel for several of its business and a GE corporate officer. I've also spent 2 terms as president of Kentucky State University, involved in a variety of things over the years across the state, and continue to be involved with work of the local branch of the NAACP, as well as the state conference of NAACP branches. And that's really me. You know, as I say, when I said earlier, we're here to do the work, and very interested in advancing and doing the things that we need to do to make the work of the commission fruitful, valuable, and in fact, upholding the statutes and the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So that's me in general. So that's me. I don't know whether, Frank, your request included having other commissioners introduce themselves or not.
Yes, I would think it would be good. There's been a lot of newness lately to the commission, and so we all, I don't know that we all really, recent commissioners fully have met each other because of this pandemic. So it might be healthy. So you as chair could know more about us, and also Ms. Henry. And yes. I hate to take up time with this, but I thought it'd be good.
That's fine. I'll just call on people looking at how I'm looking on my screen where they are. I see Commissioner Cole. You want to go first or go now? You're muted.
I didn't mean to be, that's for sure. To address this Commissioner Henry, do apologize for all the things that you've heard first of all, but you seem to be a complete delight. We are always welcoming females on the board, because we always have a task that we always are underlining taking. But I'm Debbie Cole. I do serve at the pleasure of the governor as well. I do community work. I'm actually doing a couple of things, community work with my church. And of course, I am vice president of the African American Forum. And I run an online radio station, which I've had the commissioners on my station, and I will continue to do that. My work is passionate with anything that I do, as you can tell. But I always try to do the right thing. And I commend Commissioner Smith for doing this, because I think sometimes we need to start with prayer, just to put it on the table. Because I am a faithful person, and I think when you do these kind of things, you do have a lot of things that go on with you emotionally, and things that you've done in life that give you that reflection of what you do on commissions like this. So I apologize for my boastfulness today, but I enjoy this work, and I enjoy everybody that I have worked with on this board. immensely. And I do see that we're going to go forward in a positive way. At least I hope so. I'm praying on that.
One of the Commissioner Henry says she's from, I forgot to tell folks, I'm from Louisville, I actually live in Prospect. Ms. Cole, everybody, as we go, also tell where you're physically located.
Oh, I'm actually in Lexington, Kentucky. This is where I was born and raised. But, yes,
okay. Commissioner Cheney.
Thank you. Lady Bird Johnson said that the clash of ideas is the sound of freedom, and I think a healthy exchange and a respectful exchange of perspectives is good for the commission and its work and our mutual trust in each other as commissioners. So I appreciate very deeply the opportunity to work with each one of you. A little bit about me. I have my private consulting business. I work with nonprofits who provide a broad range of educational and financial services to low wealth households, and particularly within neighborhoods and communities of color, to try to level the playing field and provide opportunity for upward economic mobility. I live in Washington County. A lot of folks are, where is that? It's off Bluegrass Parkway, about halfway between Lawrenceburg and Bardstown. We live on a beautiful farm with lots of goats and chickens and deer and other things. But again, our work is important. I have the deepest respect for each person on this board, and I very much look forward to working collaboratively with everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Frank Smith.
Thank you. Frank Smith here. I serve as pastor. I established the church in year 2000, Christ's Church for our community here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm also been preaching since age 13. So I've done quite an extensive tour of preaching around the country. I've also served here at Simmons College of Kentucky since year 2007. And it's been an interesting journey here with our pursuit for accreditation and achieving that, being officially designated as an HBCU, and other accomplishments here, and serving under President Dr. Kevin Cosby. I am a husband and a father, and I'm presently a principal caregiver of my father-in-law, and my mom is in a nursing home. Haven't been in her arms since March, but we're continuing to care for her needs at this distance. And I have a father in Huntsville, Alabama, who's also aging. So I have an immense amount of responsibilities, but I do love this commission, and I'm honored to be appointed to the commission. And I'm always indebted and grateful to you commissioners for entrusting me with the role of vice chair. And so I hope that everything that we do together will always, most of all, impact the well-being of our citizens in Kentucky.
Okay, well, thank you. Commissioner Fuentes.
Yes, thank you. I also want to welcome the new members of the commission, as well the new chair. My name is Luis Fuentes. I am a proud Cuban American. It's a pleasure to be serving the Commonwealth. I already, working for more than 11 years as an environmental professional engineer. I was working for the Department of Environmental Protection. 3 years ago, I started working more close with my Hispanic community, which is a honor to be representing, in this commission. Since 2009, I'm the publisher for Hispanic publication. El Quentubano is the name. And again, 3 years ago, I decided to take a break on my full-time job for the government. I'm working again very close with my Hispanic community, local Hispanic community. Even when I'm living in Frankfurt, most of my job is in Louisville, where the Hispanic community have been growing so fast. And again, it's a privilege being part of this commission to do something for this state, for this country, which I really, fell in love. Again, I'm trying to do the best that I can, because even with my bad English, I have been able to achieve too many things. I want to keep fighting for the justice. I want to keep fighting for defending this nation. So, as I said before, it's a privilege to be here and being part of this group. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Next, I see Commissioner Garnetta Smith.
I'm just really proud that I remembered to unmute myself. I think I'm pretty tech savvy, and then I blew it up. I had everything all set up, and then I don't know what happened. Anyway, my name is Garnetta Smith. I live in Louisville, Kentucky with my husband and our dog. That's another story. But my husband is Lawrence. We have 2 grown sons, Jason, who is an attorney here in town, and Edward, who does something with financial planning software. I don't know exactly what that is. I am a native Kentuckian. I grew up in the south central part of the state, and I didn't realize until probably maybe 5 years ago that I grew up in the foothills of Appalachia. So I love to go home. My mother is still living there, and I go home frequently to cook for her and love on her and care for her as long as I have her. I'm still working, and I am an administrator at Southern Seminary. I direct the Center for Student Success, which comprises student academic services. And my hobbies are sewing and gardening. And I would love some chickens, Anne, or at least eggs. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Randolph. You muted.
I should know better, right? Can everyone hear me now? I'm Alma Randolph. I was appointed in October 2018 to serve as chair of the commission. I'm sort of like some of the UK players. I agreed to one and done. So my term ends in September. This is the second time that I have served as a commissioner for KCHR. So obviously I too have a great love for the work that this commission is mandated to do. I am also the president and founder of the Alma Randolph Charitable Foundation. Our mission is to clothe disadvantaged children and to upgrade the living conditions of disadvantaged families. We have no paid staff. That includes myself. And we've been able to put back into the Owensboro, Davis County community over $1.3 million net into enhancing the lives of disadvantaged families. So that's my heartbeat. I'm a minister of music at the Harvest House Church in Hartford, Kentucky. And then I also provides consulting services from time to time for employers. So as you can see, my plate is full, but again, I've enjoyed the work that I've been able to perform since October 2018 as chair, and have formed some friendships that will be lifelong. And I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, next, Commissioner Thomas. You muted.
All right. Just want to say welcome to our new commissioners, and certainly glad to be a part myself of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights and all that it does to serve the people of the Commonwealth. From Madisonville, Kentucky, what we call the best town on earth, and lifelong resident of Madisonville. I think community service has been in my DNA ever since I've been a young child, but we continue to try to do things that will progress us forward here in our community across the state. I serve as president of the Kentucky State Crime Stoppers Association. I'm sure in some of your areas there, you have a Crime Stoppers program. We have 20 organizations across the Commonwealth, and I'm in my third term as president of that organization. Also president of the Community Improvement Foundation of Madisonville, Hopkins County. I am a licensed funeral director. Now I work with the Mason and Sons Funeral Home here in Madisonville, Kentucky. Always saying that I'm usually the last person to let you down, but I hope that while on the commission, I won't be doing that as well. I have a local television program that I'm now in my 25th year called Focus with Tim Thomas, and we cover many issues across the Commonwealth. And this program has been very successful, and I think bringing to the forefront many ideas and many situations that go on across our state. So I'm really proud of the success we've had with that 25-year program as well. And I encourage you to go to if you're on Facebook, you can pull it up on Focus with Tim Thomas and watch some of those programs. I also serve with the Hopkins County Joint Planning Commission here in Madisonville. I'm the vice chair of that planning commission, and so the list goes on, but I'm certainly glad to be a part of the commission, again, creating new friendships with some of these that I've just met in the past few months, and look forward to continuing this good work.
Okay, Commissioner Rabbi.
Okay, I unmuted so everyone can hear me. Okay, just checking. I had to say something. I am Commissioner Rabbi Litvin. I am the director of Chabad of the Bluegrass. Chabad is the largest Jewish organization in the world. We have 11,000 faith leaders in 107 countries in all 50 states. I run the Central and Northern Kentucky branch. I live in Lexington together with my incredible wife and my 5 gorgeous children, my oldest of who turned 5 a month ago. So I have a 5-year-old, 2 4-year-olds, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. If you hear noise in the background, I'm sorry. It's COVID. I'm working from home. I'm an emissary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who's the foremost leader of world Judaism in the modern era. He originally sent my father to come to Kentucky. I'm the second rabbi in history to be born in Kentucky and serve in Kentucky. It's an incredibly rare thing. The first rabbi in history happens to be my older brother, who's a rabbi in Louisville. I'm extremely invested in the Commonwealth in all sorts of things. And in addition to my duties at Chabad of the Bluegrass, I also serve as a rabbi at the Jewish Student Center, serving the University of Kentucky, and work with students at several other universities, as well as give much of my time helping with Jewish issues in Frankfurt and helping with both people in the hospital and those who are incarcerated to get them religious services. This is an extreme passion of mine, as it was of my father and my grandfather, and I feel very blessed to be serving this commission.
Okay, thank you. I think we've heard from everybody. Is Commissioner Cusick on?
Alma, you're muted.
Commissioner Cusick has resigned from the commission.
Okay. I'm just looking at my list. Okay, well, thank you all for that and for the introduction. There are several members of the staff that are on, and I guess we'll let them introduce them as they do their various reports as we go through there. The next item on the agenda is the consideration and approval of the minutes of the November 19th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Okay, so been moved. I saw Ms. Cheney also moving, so says she seconded. So it's been moved and seconded that those minutes be approved. Are there any discussion regarding that? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. It's like, okay, so those are approved unanimously. And here we now, next on the agenda is go into the section reports. The first one up is the executive director report. Terrence.
So thank you. Thanks everybody again for being here. Just starting with my report, the budget and personnel, there's no new budget notes or changes right now, but there are some to come, hopefully, with the legislative session. We worked with COT talking about costing issues, which I brought up to you all before, and just giving you all an update on some of those cost savings that we tried to achieve. We were able to get all of the old machines removed, and the expected savings are close to $20,000 a year, just getting rid of old things that we weren't using. On top of those returning that unneeded equipment, we also worked with COT to be the inaugural agency with their new computer system program. And so for the past few months, especially being remote, we were paying monthly for desktop computers and laptop computers. But now we have all new machines that double as a laptop and desktop that they can dock in, which saves us doubled monthly expenses on the budget, because now we're able to just charge for one device. And then speaking of the budget, looking at the governor's proposed budget, it actually doesn't cut us. And as it was written, it is an increase in our general fund appropriation, which the Senate version, which came after, also continues that. I've had discussions with Senate leadership on this issue and our budget and our need to keep, to at least prevent cuts, but also to keep any increases. And then I also have had conversations with House leadership to do the same. And so we're 2 hurdles in so far before they go to any conference committee on keeping that in there. And there are already good, very needed plans for that appropriation, if it holds, to make sure that we're able to grow our enforcement investigating staff, as well as adding admin positions that can help us with workload and keeping up with some of the things that we need to do. As far as our open positions, the managing attorney position is just pending postage. The personnel cabinet has it, and they wanted to make a few changes to the posting. And then once that's approved and finalized, we'll have it posted for, I think it's 10 days. And then we'll have the interview committee and start interviews. There's no staff spotlight. We'll get back to that at the end of this. But as far as any professional development and training, we talked the last time about the hate crimes task force, but we're moving that meeting to a new date just because of the timing and the signups and all of that. We want to make sure that people are able to attend, that want to attend. And so we're moving that. Sandy and Brittany did the KDLA records management training, and that's really helpful in keeping us up to date on what are best practices for agency compliance and how we handle our records and do all of that. And then I've been personally involved in some state management trainings and budgeting trainings, as well as some HR trainings that are especially needed as we move forward with the open position and hopefully more open positions. Some new things with outreach is we're discussing and drafting up plans for a civic learning program, which Brittany was really excited about helping start. And this comes from some meetings with other agencies like ours around us. And that can be used to increase our internship opportunities for students at schools near us, but really reaching out to our local and regional schools like Simmons, Jefferson Community Technical College, Louisville, Spalding, and all of these, just to help with growing that civic leadership and also helping us within the agency. We've also I've started meeting with the local commissions around the state, and the education outreach team throughout December and January has been working to get updated information and contacts from all the local commissions, just to make sure that we can continue our relationships, but also helping when those agencies might have some questions for us on how they can further their own missions. And then we're also working on getting our branding and imagery down just as an outreach item, talking to people throughout the state. We want to make sure that we're consistent in what we're putting out there and how it looks and sounds and feels. And so working on making sure we create this consistent KCHR brand that really lets people know this is this agency that's doing this work on behalf of you. And so they know when they see it, if it is coming from us.
Mr. Sullivan, excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but can you tell us what KDLA stands for?
That
Record
is,
management?
I think it's and Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're still here.
Kentucky Department for Library and Archives.
Yep. There
Thank
you
you.
go. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
So we are, I mentioned earlier the program with COT and being able to get those laptops and all of that. So we set up installation times with COT and everyone was able to get their machine set up. There were a few issues with accessing shared drives, but COT has been really responsive when being reached out to about some of the issues and has been very quick to come and get things fixed. So that's also helped with being able to have more full staff engagement because we can now all have laptops when we're not in the office and we can do more communicative efforts and talking. I told you all a few months ago that we were going to work on getting legal tracking software just to make sure that we're giving full fidelity to those cases and having that ability to see where they are in the process and all of that. And so we've contracted with Clio Legal Case Tracking for the year to do our case management. We looked at some in-house options, but decided that the professionalism we needed and the necessities that legal really needed a full professionally designed program that only does legal case tracking. And I worked with Clio and talked about our budget and all of that. And so we are able to get a discount right now, which allows for cloud online access to our database at all times. And then we're also working on how to improve our access while we're out of the building because of COVID and all of that. And I reached out to each of you individually, but this year we're starting new internal programming directions, and there will be, we talked about different changes and plans, including the full staff meetings now that we all have access to laptops that double as desktops. But I also have put together some regularly scheduled touch points with our federal partners to talk about our funding options beyond our workshare partnerships, because there are other opportunities out there for us to get funding. And so we have monthly, and for others, twice a month conversations set up for the next 2 years on where we can find grants and budget programs or things to help our budget that we can be provided and things that we can help do. Our bid for space for the building, we talked about this a few months ago, and I know that it's been a long road of they're going to post it eventually. Well, it finally posted and has gone live, and now we have until the end of the month where we will await proposals to see if any building proposals are submitted that can create us a cost saving and or an improvement to our current facilities. And as soon as any of that is moving forward, once we get proposals, we can discuss the proposals that we are given and the suitability requests that are sent. And then I mentioned this again earlier about meeting with leadership in both chambers concerning our budget and protecting our funding. And we also have two bills drafted in one in the House and one in the Senate from legislators I worked with regarding our timelines and those types of issues that we were facing, just to make sure that we have that statutory protection for any possible challenges that come up from if we're not able to meet, say, the 30 days for a probable cause deadline. And so with our staffing as it is, some members of the Senate and some members of the House were very responsive to that request for slight extensions in our statutory timelines, just as a protection for people who are seeking the services of this agency, and so they aren't kicked out for a few days delay that might be challenged. The last thing I wanted to talk about is we're skipping the staff spotlight this time for two reasons. One is talking to the managers, we decided or discussed that it might be better to do them in intervals instead of every month. But also I wanted to save this first spotlight of the new year to spotlight a commissioner, and wanted to really thank Commissioner Randolph for her efforts as chair and helping with this agency. And so first, I wanted to offer my own personal thank you. This agency owes a lot to you for your work, and I wanted to just extend that publicly in this meeting. And so that's why I wanted to save it for this time. But further, knowing that transitions are hard and that they're even harder when they're abrupt and unprecedented, you know all about that as you were given a tall task to step in and chair a newly constituted board, but to also address some inner workings of an agency and roles that were unfamiliar. And so you were also asked to help keep this ship afloat as it searched for a new leader, and in the absence of a full-time leader, to step in and do some things in its place. And so I know now from 6 months of experience that I can attest to the challenges that persist in this office, and your efforts to keep this thing going can't be understated, because it's tough, and it takes a strong person and a strong leader to do that. And lastly, I know that when you all started and when you took over, you were given one main charge of restoring this agency to the premier agency that it was, and to do that with ability and grace. And I can say confidently today that the trajectory of this agency is strong, and we owe you quite a bit of gratitude for your steady hand in giving us a very stable present and an even brighter future. And so I wanted to thank you personally and on behalf of the agency and the commission, and wanted to present you, you'll be sent this, but to present you a commemoration to just keep, to be reminded of all the hard work that you did serving as chair. And so can't really see it with the glare there, but it's just a glass commemorative trophy plaque with your name and the state seal, and just a sincere thank you for what you've done for us and for this agency. And I just wanted to make sure that you were able to see that, and that will be sent to you today. And just wanted to, again, spotlight you and what you've done for us. And we are on a good track, and it's just very, very grateful to what you've done.
Thank you very much.
I second that.
Now we can take questions. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that was at the end.
Well, I want to say something real quick. Terrence, that was great. That was beautiful. I commend you for doing that. Wish we were in person. But anyway, that was a good tribute. And Elma, you, Commissioner Randolph, you have done a wonderful job as chair, and we couldn't have gotten through all of this without you. So, accent what Terrence said.
I want to also thank you, Executive Director Sullivan, for that presentation to our chair. And I do want to appreciate you Commissioner Randolph, for the leadership that I have seen from you as I've begun serving here, and knowing bits and pieces of what has preceded my time with you. Again, hats off to you. I did want to ask one question of Executive Director related to Clio. And I'm sure this has already been thought through. Just thought about their protection, whatever this database is, protection against any breach, any issues should information be breached, how safeguarded they are, and working with a state agency as well. Is this something that is often used throughout various state agencies, given the kind of information that we would have within it?
So that is a great question. To your first point, that's one reason why we went with this professional software company that specifically does legal case management. They have that built in, as security and confidentiality is very important in the legal field. And so using a professional company that specializes in doing just this is for that security. To your second question about state use, I think, as far as I know, we are the only state agency using Clio. The state, once we put in the payment for this, did let us know that they are working on their own version of a legal case management system, but we don't know when that will be finished and when they'll start transitioning state agencies to all be into this one program. And I didn't want to do any further delay with the cases that we do have and the management that's needed. And so once that is finalized, and that's why we have a 1-year negotiated discount with Clio. If that other case tracking system comes within the next year, we can have the information migrated over. But right now we were able to secure that discounted rate, but also make sure that we are being very true to what we need to do in the legal unit. And so that's why we wanted to act now and make sure we secured Clio.
Any other questions for the Executive Director? Hearing none, and not seeing anyone's hands raised. Let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the budget and personnel. And Brandon can give that report.
If I could quickly say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the last thing, I spoke, but I didn't unmute. I just also want to repeat what everyone said. As I spoke to you when I first joined the board, joining this commission was incredibly meaningful to me. And number one, the leadership you've shown while I've been here. Number two, how welcoming you were in helping me get situated and figure everything out. I'm incredibly appreciative of. And there's a story I often think of Senator Moynihan, who had served as ambassador and a senator and an advisor to presidents. In 1976, he stepped down from ambassador to the UN and was thinking of retiring. He was in his 60s. And he met with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a world Jewish leader. And the Rebbe said, I'm just curious what you're doing next, what your next leadership role is. He said, I'm in my 60s. And the Rebbe goes, yeah, I know. So I'm curious. You have so many years left. And then he served actually for the next 25 years as senator from New York. So as you end your term as chair, I'm excited to see what next leadership role you take helping the people of the Commonwealth, because I'm sure there's another one coming. And God bless you, whatever you do next. I know you're still here for a year, but I really am indebted and appreciate your leadership up until this point.
Anyone else? Okay, let's go to the budget and personnel report.
Okay, you have my report before you. If there are any questions, I'll field them at this time.
Yes, I had one question. I'm trying, maybe I'm understanding this incorrectly. At the top of the revised presentation, There says fiscal year 2020 year to date, and then the next column says fiscal year 2021 to date.
That's right.
Year to date. So I just wanted to see, am I making sure that I'm reading and understanding what that means?
Yes, it should actually say fiscal year 2021.
Okay.
So yes, that is for the year beginning July the 1st. Oh, I'm sorry. No. That's fiscal year 2020. That's a comparison. Okay. So what I did was I ran a report that showed where we were at as of this point in fiscal year 2020, and we are comparing it with where we're at now. And then the difference is the variance there. So that shows whether we're ahead or behind of where we were at this point in the previous fiscal year.
Okay. All right. That's
to give us an idea. I always, rather than just showing where we're at, you have to have something to compare it to. And using the previous fiscal year is the best guide that we have at this point. So, yes, Commissioner Cheney.
Brandon, I believe at our last meeting, Commissioner Delaney Ellis, when she was asking about a budget variance report, was she asking for a year-over-year comparison, or would it be more helpful to see a year-to-date budget variance for the current year budget?
Well, I sent her something, and before we were able to meet to discuss it further, she was replaced as commissioner.
Okay. Well, so I guess my thought here is that it's helpful for us to see historically how we compare year over year, but perhaps there's more utility in seeing where we are in relation to our current year budgeted funds.
Sure. Well, to do a variance, you have to have something to compare it to. I can show you. Okay, so you would like to see what percentage of our funds we have spent up to this point based on our budgeted amount. Is that correct?
Well, I guess we need input, from the entire commission, but for me personally, seeing year over year is relatively helpful, but knowing what this year's budget is and seeing a budget variance for this specific year. And I know there's always going to be timing differences.
So
there's going to be a long gap perhaps in the reimbursables by some of the federal agencies, and then you'll get a whole bunch of money at once. But I think it would still be useful to have sort of a current year budget variance report. But that's my opinion. Other folks may feel differently, so I'll hush.
I can include that, no problem whatsoever. And actually, because these are expenditures, not revenues, the federal portion shouldn't be a big deal. I might tweak it just a little bit because most of our budget, about 87% is payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a technical adjustment I might have to make. I don't know if you're familiar with what the state has done in previous years, starting in 2012, but they moved for budgeting reasons, they moved the June 30th payroll to July. Yes.
Yeah.
And I wish they would correct that. They just need to bite the bullet one year and fix that. But if I made that adjustment, we should get a pretty accurate expense to budget variance for our current year. And I can do that, no problem.
Okay, super. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Brandon? Yes, hearing none and seeing no one raise their hand, let's move on to the enforcement unit report and Aaron Spalding.
Hello, everyone. You all have my report before you. And then we also have 36 cases today for your consideration, and that is 1 conciliation, 4 reconsiderations, 1 admin closure, 18 no probable cause determinations, 1 withdrawal, and 11 withdrawal with settlements. Do y'all have any questions on any of the cases or my report?
Any questions by anybody?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Randolph.
Yes. And Ms. Spalding, if I'm being redundant here, please let me know. But the cases like from 8756E, it's like 980 days. Page 34, the cases that are laid out on page 34 and 35.
Are you talking about the open case list?
The open case list.
Yeah.
823 days owed to 980 days owed. Can you sort of bring us up to date if anything is being done as it relates to moving these cases?
Yes. After we met our contract in September, enforcement unit, we immediately switched our focus on to not just meeting the contract, but to make a focus on aged cases. And towards the end of November, I pulled all the cases at that time that were 600 days and older. At that time, we had 23 of them. We have since closed out several of those. And if you'll look at the agenda for this month, there are several more that are on that agenda. I'm meeting with enforcement officers weekly, and we are going over these cases. We have also submitted some to legal that needed some assistance as far as some direction. And I think we had a subpoena that we requested from legal. So we are really making a shift and focusing on our old cases, and we hope to really make an impact on those. And you should see, if it works, of us getting these cases out, you should see the case age go down some. And you'll notice that there won't be as many older ones, but we should start seeing that, because I've noticed, I'm watching the agenda too, and we do have a lot of older cases that are being presented. So we're working on them.
I knew that you were. Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve and accept the enforcement unit's report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good job.
Our next item is a report from the Education and Outreach Unit. Ms. Fox.
Good morning. You all have that report in your commission books or tablets. Do you have any questions? Sounds good.
I do want to say one thing. On that list that you had, I was honored to have you and Juan. I think that was you and him on the show, and it did make an impact. The numbers were great, and I do want to have you guys back in February for Black History. I was honored to have you guys as guests on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you for that report. The next item is a report from the legal unit. Mr. Sales.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Good morning. For those who don't know me, welcome. My name is Colt Sells. I'm the staff attorney for the agency. And for those that do know me, it's nice to see you again. I hope everyone had a good holiday season. And like everyone else, you've got my report. I'm happy to field any questions you have concerning that report.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Sells, and I may be on this. I believe at some point in a previous meeting, this case, Donan versus Chestnut Hills Ventures, the incident was October 8th, 2013. So the case is like over 2,500 days old. What's the status on that? And was it referred to the AG's office, or am I confused on that?
No, it wasn't referred to the AG's office. And the status of that case, I think at this point it should be closed. Before I came on to the commission about 6 months ago, the defendants in those cases had, the business is insolvent. There's no business left to go after. Right now, we're in the process of trying to communicate that to the complainant, but we're having some issues getting a hold of them. We've tried them both by phone and last known address, and we've been unsuccessful. I think what needs to happen at this point might be a final letter saying, hey, contact us. We're going to close the case. But unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done at this point since the business has gone under.
So will you issue that final letter as another attempt before?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Sales, I wanted to ask, if I may, Chair Burse, I wanted to ask a question about the printed number pages 93 and 94 of your report. Related to these amounts, there are penalties, there are amounts, balances due, total outstanding, etc. Could you help me unpack what these particular cases, these judgments, what that means?
I can do my best. Of course, those predate me by some time. We actually were served, and I don't have the page numbers as you have them, but it looks like we're talking about case 1706H. Is that right?
It's the last two pages of your report.
So I can only take an educated guess at what happened in those cases. It seems as if we had secured some kind of judgment against the respondents in those cases and then filed a judgment lien against the property in those cases. I was actually served with a foreclosure suit on that property when I got to the office today. And in some research, the respondent had been foreclosed on in 2016 as well, to which we were made a party. What it appears to me at this point is that our lien and our interest in that case are far more junior to some of the other liens on those properties. I'm trying to get that sorted out now, but it seems as if it's uncollected because there's nothing left to collect. Again, I got served with a foreclosure suit to which we were made a party today. So I'm in the middle of trying to figure out what exactly had happened on our end before I got here, and then what needs to happen going forward. Did I answer? Is there any specific question as to the numbers? I'm not sure if I answered you.
Yes, you're fine. I just thought more conversation around that. I noticed your comments at the end there about the check and everything and its clearing. So I just kind of wanted to know what's the future of that. Is this going to ever be resolved or to be anticipated, or do you feel that it's washed out due to?
The language at the end of the report is actually the words of the previous attorney who sat in my chair before I got here. Again, I'm focused on working on some of the cases that we've got. I'm not paid as much attention to this maybe as I should have, but it seems as if, based on what I received in the mail today, it's going to be brought to the front of my mind, and I have to get it sorted out. But to me, it does seem on first blush that respondent is judgment proof, and I'm not sure what, if anything, we'll be able to get.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the next item, which is committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Okay, which then gets us to new business. Is there new business to be brought before the body?
Chair, the new business, as I see it, relates to the release of the audit. So I don't know how you would want to proceed with this, whether it should be in closed session or open. This is the whole process as far as the reappointment of the chair. I do not believe it's your fault or my fault. I feel like that several balls were dropped along the way during the process from the time that the governor decided to make this appointment. So the lack of communication can cause a great deal of chaos, and certainly makes me feel quite uncomfortable as to how we need to proceed with this. And that's unfortunate. But as I told you in response to the email that you submitted to me, I believe on the 7th or the 8th, that I am a team player and I do want to seek whatever is right and is in the best interest of the commission. So we have an audit now that has been finalized, and I do not have the authority to give Dean Dorton any direction now on what they need to do with the report, but it is finalized. It is now subject to open records requests. So I think the board of commissioners needs to be able to have some kind of direction on where to go from here.
Chair.
Go ahead, Frank.
Chair, if I may, I wondered, just thought hit me, could it be possible that you, Chair, and I, and Commissioner Randolph, and maybe Executive Director Sullivan could meet and review or get some kind of an update on this one matter? And if the commission would entrust that to us to have a discussion and then maybe report back if necessary to the broader commission, what we can be able to bring up to speed on whatever communications are necessary on this one matter. Is that a opportunity, or would that be off base?
You know, I guess just looking at it, you know, in order to discuss it in a closed session, you got to be able to be under one of the exceptions to the Kentucky Open Meetings Law. And unless somebody can enlighten me as to what provision under there you can do that in a closed session, I think you have to have a discussion. If you want to refer it to an ad hoc committee for purposes of working through that, I have no objection, no problem with that being done. I think we may have to look at even for committees in terms of their work and whether or not we have to give notice, public notice of those sessions taking place for people to sit in on. But I think what you're suggesting is a good path, a good way forward in terms of trying to get some resolution. If we can do it within the confines of what the statutes require, as well as what the bylaws of the organization requires, I have no issue with it. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
I have something. This is one of the issues that we brought up earlier, that if we discuss this audit and we're going to go forward with it, this is where I guess the thin line of your approval, because we have to discuss something that, I mean, I don't understand why we're still teetering this. This is something that is a little bit of as Commissioner Randolph said, it's uncomfortable. If the chair and Randolph and maybe Terrence would discuss this, I would understand. But if you're part of that, I'm just saying that's still part of the issue that's been brought up. I'm not trying to make it, harder than what it is. It's just it's blatant here. I mean, I don't understand why it's even thought of as it doesn't matter. These issues that we've got with this audit does concern things that you should be recused from. Just help me understand. I'm not an attorney, but how am I understanding this?
Commissioner Cole, I understand. I think my point is, first of all, the governor has appointed our chair to the position, and he is empowered as chair to function as chair of the commission. So my point is just to basically say to benefit from, and I'm wanting to be a part of it as vice chair, to benefit from discussion pertaining to the report and whatever wisdom that Commissioner Randolph has, that it could be transferred so that our chair can best know what the report is dealing with, because everything in that report does not revolve around one particular issue, but I think, if I recall, it's kind of a broad-based thing. And I don't see how he can function as chair of this current commission without being in the know of what is before us. And so I think that to get to a solution, it would be helpful to benefit from as much communication on this as possible. And recognizing we're blessed to have Commissioner Randolph here and her, history with this, so that we can have a smooth transition going forward. And then we could deduce if it's something that perhaps maybe I would need to handle as vice chair in the recusal of Chair Burse, then we could determine that. And but I just think we need some time, and it's a lot to deal with, I feel, beyond this particular meeting to get to this. And that's where I was just wanting to, before we can decide what's to be recused of, there has to be some kind of communication process. So that's what I was bringing to, maybe as a motion before the commission, if I could, Chair, that we could approach it from that light.
It seems to me, if I may, it seems to me that the issue is it possible, according to statute, that we do this in closed session or not? Is that correct? Is that the question?
But I guess I'm just guess from a procedural standpoint, I think someone said they wanted to discuss it, and then somebody suggested, I guess Commissioner Randolph had suggested a potential closed session. My question is,
well, I didn't suggest, I was just asking, is that an option?
You're right. But under the Kentucky statutes for open meetings, I don't see anything in there that allows for a closed session to discuss it. So that's number one. Number two is Commissioner Randolph also said the report is now final and is subject to the open meetings law, to the open records law. So it is now a public document. And then, so the question is, does the commissioner needs to take any specific action as it relates to one of the exceptions to the open meetings laws to go into a closed session to discuss it? And I say I'm in the blind because I don't know.
Yeah, let me throw a question out. And again, I'm not an attorney, but if information in the audit, maybe John or Jane Q. Public, who would not be legal professionals, reading the document would not be able to discern a role that maybe an employee has played. But as we read the document and there are incidents in there that does involve employees, then does that not become a personnel matter? And if so, do we have the right to have those discussions in an open meeting that involve personnel, whether they're former or current?
If your conclusion is as relates to a specific employee on which you want to have a discussion, then you can go into executive session to do that. But to have a general personnel discussion, no.
Right.
And if I may,
Commissioner Cheney, then Commissioner Smith.
No, Commissioner Smith, please.
Well, that's why I was saying before we talk about a closed meeting, I hear what Commissioner Randolph said, but before we get to that point, I was suggesting that there be some review of this, inclusive of executive director, myself, Chair Burse, Commissioner Randolph, as you termed, Chair Burse, an ad hoc committee. And that's what I'm bringing to the table as a precursor to a closed session, so that you could then look at, is that permissible to have such an ad hoc committee to filter through this report and see where what's in place. And then after that, we could determine the next step, because it's to tie up this monthly meeting process, closed or open, given the many subjects that are part of the report. I think we would do well to review it, among us, and allow our current chair to exercise leadership of the commission going forward, based, having the information.
Commissioner Cheney?
So I think and I don't know how the other commissioners feel about this, but part of the awkwardness here for me personally is that we had a meeting in which there was, we were given an hour to read the report. I actually took advantage of the opportunity to go to the auditor's office and sat there for actually about 3 hours. So, but since then, because the document was not public and we are citizens as would be anyone else, John Q. Public, we haven't been able to see the document since then. I very much agree with Reverend Dr. Smith. I think an ad hoc committee would be in order. I think the proposed membership of that is appropriate. And because the committee itself cannot take any action, and there is no decision-making authority, I do believe that it is important to get the full scope of the forensic audit, because there were a multitude of issues, some related to former employees and some not. Right. And so I believe that the chair needs the breadth and the scope going forward. But what I would also ask is, or suggest, I guess more appropriately, is that we as commissioners also individually take time to revisit the report now that it is publicly available. I have tried to be very consistent in expressing my concern that this commission has taken a number of proactive steps to remedy a number of the issues identified by the auditors, and that absent a coherent, concurrent response by this commission to let the public know that we have in fact dealt with some of these issues and are continuing to deal with some of these issues, that we have a report that basically is silent with regard to an incredible amount of work that has been done to ensure that the prior issues do not occur again. So I would, again, like to see the commission formulate a response and articulate the work that it has done concurrent with the audit, even though one is now public. But to just let that audit be out there publicly with no current adjacent commentary reflects very poorly on us.
Let me ask Commissioner Smith.
Yes, I would agree with Commissioner Cheney that we as commissioners need to see the audit. I don't have a problem with an ad hoc committee, if that's what you want to call it, reviewing everything to see, you know, what will be our public statement. But I think it's unfair to the commissioners to have this out in the public and available to public, and we've not seen the final report. So I would ask that we would also be able to receive that final report, even as or if we have an ad hoc committee, if that comports with what Commissioner Reverend Smith says.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I ask two questions. One, I don't know what the RFP for the audit or what that process was, but did it include a presentation by the auditing firm to the commission itself?
It did.
Okay, so that remains to be done. And I guess my assumption is until it makes that presentation to the commission, the report itself is not final. It's only final for purpose of them willing to present it. So it's not a final report. I would argue that. My second point is, and this goes back to Commissioner Cheney, usually when audits are done, and whether it is done in terms of requiring that the staff responds or the commission respond, a response should be a part of that audit report in terms of being released at the same time to say that these are corrective actions that have been taken, laid out, and all of those things. You know, and I guess if people are amenable to what the Commissioner Smith has suggested and do it, I'm all in favor of doing that, and we don't necessarily need to take a formal motion to be able to get that done. We'll get it done. Commissioner Randolph?
A question, Chair. So, and I'm in agreement with what you stated. Someone, either Mr. Sullivan or yourself, needs to be in communication with Dean Dorton, because as it stands now, they're just sort of in limbo, not getting any kind of guidance from anyone associated with KCHR. And so if the presentation is to be made by them and protecting it, the document from being subjected to open records requests prior to this subcommittee meeting, it seems like to me that a plan needs to be put in action immediately, starting with Dean Dorton, getting copies to the entire commissioners, and then deciding when that presentation would be. Do we meet before the presentation is made? What will that order?
I'm assuming the presentation would be a part of the commission meeting itself.
But my question is, would this ad hoc committee meet and review the document before that presentation, or that the presentation and then the committee? Because if we're going to have a response, here's what I'm concerned about. We want to have a response to whatever is included in that report. We can't have a response if we haven't met to formula one.
I think there's Commissioner Cole.
Yeah, I mean, we're dancing a little bit here. This is the reason why we said this in the beginning, that there was a conflict of interest. We are trying to go forward with this audit. We're trying to go forward with what we're trying to do here. And if there is a purpose here to slow that down or to make it not available or to not go forward, that's what all of us are a little concerned with, Chair Burst. You have to see the conflict, and for you to make it public, to say that we can't go into closed session because you have the opportunity to say whether or not you want to excuse yourself. This is borderline, as you say, integrity and ethical. I mean, legally, you standing on legal accolade, but technically here, this doesn't make sense to some of us. It doesn't. Now, I don't have a problem with you guys meeting and having a committee, and I want to be on that. But if you're going to be a part of that, that's the only reason why we're having an uncomfortable underlining here, because it is a conflict of interest to us, whether you believe it or not. It is a very much of an interest conflict. It really is. And I don't know why we're dancing with this.
Commissioner Cheney.
We've got so many threads here. I'm trying to pull some of them back together.
Yes,
Chair, one of the issues is that the last version of the forensic audit, or the only version of the forensic audit that I have seen, contained no findings, no recommendations, no management letter. Therefore, there was nothing for us to respond to. You sort of had to wade through and pick out the issues. And there were a multitude, and they dealt with fiscal issues, and some were personnel issues, some were procedural. So I guess I don't want to make an assumption. Have you had an opportunity to read the audit as of yet?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, I have not.
Okay.
And really don't know much about it.
Right. So we've got a situation where you as the chair need the historical, you need the knowledge of what's in the forensic audit. We as the commission should probably refresh our memories as to what is in the audit. Because no action is being taken, because you're no longer representing the former employee, I don't believe that information sharing to me personally does not present any sort of conflict. I think that's a critical step that has to occur. And we have to communicate to Dean Dorton that we need a management letter or findings or recommendations or something other than just sort of this blanket. We looked at a whole bunch of stuff and here's what we found, so that we actually are responding to something. But you cannot, we as a commission, I would ask that we as a commission formulate our response and that not be a task of the ad hoc committee. So I very much agree with the ad hoc.
Any response to that report has to be a commission response and not any individual or any committee response. And I didn't take Commissioner Smith's suggestion or recommendation as doing that. A lot of what is to be concluded, not knowing what the process was, but I'm assuming there was an RFP and set out what this was supposed to provide, is whether all of those elements are in fact there. The fact of the matter is that if it included a presentation and that has not occurred, in my opinion, that makes the report still a draft report, which Dean Dorton should be able to give to each and every one of you in terms of that report so that you are able to see it and do that. I said, don't know that much about it, don't know any of those things. But I think that an ad hoc committee will not ultimately make the decision in regards to what happens and what takes place. It has to be a commission decision, and that's where it rests. But I think you need to have full and complete information in order to make that kind of decision.
I think we are in fact in agreement as to the scope of the work of the ad hoc committee. I just wanted to express my concerns that I don't believe the forensic audit should be considered a public document until there are findings and recommendations and responses.
Right.
That is the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then I guess lastly, when we get to the point of responding to whatever recommendations or management letter we may receive, at that point, conflicts can be real or they can be perceived. Mm-hmm. And the public trust in us as commissioners and in this organization is of the utmost importance and is very critical. And I don't remember who said this, but the law allows what honor forbids. What I would encourage all of us to do is to be mindful that while there may not be something that by letter of law is an issue, that perception is very much out there. And if there is an area in which there might be the appearance of a conflict, whether it's the chair or any one of us, that we would appropriately recuse ourselves from conversation.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sure I will get off my soapbox.
I think Commissioner Garnetta Smith, I thought I saw your hand.
No, it was Commissioner Henry. Commissioner Henry had her hand up quite a bit.
Okay. Go ahead. We're still muted. You're still muted, Commissioner Henry. You turned off your video.
Yeah. Sorry. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to interject that I feel kind of lost in this. I'm very familiar with audits. I know the purpose, but I have no background material to even make a valid contribution to the discussion. So that leaves me kind of lost in trying to listen to each of you as to what has previously occurred and what should occur. And as you were stating, there's been no formal presentation. And every instance that I've had to deal with an audit of any kind, there's always a formal written presentation and an oral presentation. So I'm trying to factor in exactly what on the agenda, what it is that you want us to do as commissioners today to rectify what you've presented. I'm lost.
You speaking to me or to Commissioner Randolph?
Well, I'm speaking to whomever I was speaking
now
to.
You've joined the confusion.
Thank you. I'm speaking to whoever understands. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I can't give any valid or pertinent information if I don't have if I'm not privy to what it is, then how could I make any kind of decision? And I don't do things that way.
Right. I want to be very
so I'll help in every way I can, but I just need the information.
Let me bring this to a conclusion. I guess what I hear the sentiment is I guess Commissioner Frank Smith, the executive director, Commissioner Randolph,
yes,
and I need to have a discussion to get all of us on the same page in regards to where it is, where we are, and understand what the next steps should be. Bring that back to this body for you to understand what it is that what needs to be done, and hopefully have it in a format, in a presentation that is actionable to take some action at that point in time. Did I sum it up, the sentiment correctly?
Very well stated.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Could we concurrently with that request that the report, while the ad hoc committee is looking at it, that the entire commission also receive concurrently the final report if it has been published prior to Dean Dorton's presentation? Because heretofore when they presented, and I would say for those who are new, we had a presentation from Dean Dorton related to the
Oh.
draft.
Right.
So there is some knowledge. And then as Commissioner Cheney mentioned, she was unable to be at, I think, that meeting or whatever, but she went and reviewed it herself because it was a matter of the commission. So there is some flow, Commissioner Henry, among us on some of the contents of that. But I think it would help, just my thought, before we would hear a presentation this time from Dean Dorton, that we benefit from having reviewed the document ahead of their presentation so that we could formulate more questions or what have you, clarifications, and it might make that meeting or presentation shorter. And that's one thing I want to add to.
Okay.
I concur.
I
Yes.
concur with that as well.
That
So do I.
Commissioner Randolph.
I would also strongly suggest that this document be submitted to the entire Board of Commissioners as a hard copy and not via an email attachment, because it's like 100 and some odd pages. So I just think that it's going to be much easier for the board to be able to work through that, having a hard copy versus it sent electronically. Just my thought.
Okay, we'll work through all of that.
So either you or Mr. Sullivan will be in touch with Dean Dorton, because it's no longer appropriate for me to do that.
I think before we get in touch with Dean Dorton, first, I think that we need to have the four of us need to meet, at least have a call to go through that. So we understand, at least I understand what I'm talking to Dean Dorton about and what's the expectation on them, that we're expecting them to do that.
But you, as the new chair, needs to notify them that you are the new chair and that you will be that contact person. I have no reason to continue to perform that. Sure. So they've just been left hanging out there because of the way that this.
Let me ask you this: is there some documentation of the agreement with Dean Dorton and any communications, written communications with them as to what has taken place, what the expectations are?
I don't understand your question.
Yes, related to the need for a presentation to the commission as part of the original contract.
Right. On January the 4th, after the AG's office notified me that they had no concerns with the report being, well, let me back up even more than that. Goldberg, the Attorney General's office, recommended that Goldberg Simpson, who is the law firm that this Board of Commissioners retained to respond to the concerns from the former director. So the AG's office said, you need to have Goldberg Simpson to review the audit. Goldberg Simpson reviewed the audit, and then their response was that the audit, they found, and I want to be careful what I'm saying publicly. There are some sections of the report that they were greatly concerned about legally. So they recommended that the report remain in draft form to protect it from open records request. Okay, so it remained in draft form until January the 4th, 2021, when the AG's office said that it could move from draft to final. And I won't go into, and at this time, what those concerns were.
Right.
So it's been lying in Dean Dorton's office since January the 4th, with the notification from me at that time as chair that it was okay to finalize the report, but nothing's been done because I wasn't sure what was going on. You obviously had no idea what was going on with it. I'm sure Mr. Sullivan hasn't been involved. So again, this is crazy because it's the
Commissioner, well, let me, Commissioner Smith.
I just wanted to clarify the question. The question is, in procuring Dean Dorton to do this audit, is there a written contract that stipulates what their responsibilities are to the commission, inclusive of a presentation of the final report? Strictly that, just the Dean Dorton, and is there documentation available that we could have to best understand what their scope of work is or their responsibility is to the commission?
And the answer to that question is yes. Brandon Ross has a copy of the RFP.
Okay.
That anyone can be privy to.
Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to also ask, if I may, Chair Burrs, if Executive Director Sullivan could chime in if he has any insights on this, because I think he would, as Executive Director, also have some responsibilities in this, and it may be more appropriate if he were to make whatever asks necessary. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Commissioner Cheney.
I believe we have a motion on the floor to create the ad hoc committee. I'm not sure if there is a second, but I would like to second that motion. I would also ask that the chair reach out to the Attorney General's office and let them know perhaps the finalization of the audit might have been premature until we have an opportunity to review the contract. And I would like to ask that the ad hoc committee review the contract and determine if in fact the audit remains in draft form. But I would like to go ahead and second the motion and get a vote and move on with our other business.
Okay. This has been fully discussed. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, those opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we will go forward with that. Any additional new business?
This is not new business, but as outgoing chair, I just want to express my gratitude to the current board as well as to the board that came on with me in October of 2018. You're a great group of individuals to work with. I appreciate all the support that you've given me while I served as chair. I recall when I was first appointed that it was somewhat intimidating to accept this challenge. And as many of you all are aware, that Mr. Johnson and his wife and I have been acquainted and friends for probably close to 40 years. So I leaned on him quite a bit when I came on board to reach a point that I could feel comfortable as chair. He always showed the utmost respect to me in that role. And so I'm sure he's not with us today on this Zoom meeting, but I do want to publicly acknowledge that I appreciate him sort of holding my hand through the learning curve, as I am confident that Mr. Sullivan will for Mr. Burris as he assumes this role. I also want to acknowledge Cynthia Fox, who graciously stepped in to serve as interim director through some very dark days. And I enjoyed the same relationship with her, always the utmost respect. Whatever I can do to help, Chair, let me know. I want to recognize Marianne Taylor, Education and Outreach, Ms. Altita McWilliams, who heads the Mediation Division, Ms. Erin Spalding over our Enforcement Division. I'm sure they all have gray hairs from all the questions that I have every month, just as I did when I served on the commission previously. Mr. Coate Sells, along with Mr. Sullivan, I know that they've worked hard to try to reduce the caseload, the backlog of cases that we've had. We had to make some very difficult decisions, you know, as it relates to legal and how we reached a point that we are at with the severe backlog of cases. But the board made the tough decisions that we had to make. And I want to say that it's very easy a lot of times to take a broad brush and paint an entire organization or a group of people as being responsible for a ball that has been dropped, when in essence that is not the case. And so we have a great group of employees that works for this commission. It's not possible for me to name everyone. I did recognize those that are in charge of the various divisions. Brandon Ross, boy, came on board and immediately had to get the financials together for us in order for us to meet the deadlines that we had facing us. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I did reach out to our current chair and assured him that until my term concludes in September, that I'm here to assist in any way that I can. And I'll either be a team player or I'll resign, but that's my commitment. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you for those comments. Any other new business? Okay, let me open with some comments and statements. Well, let's go to the next. Are there any suggestions for our agenda topic for our next meeting, which will be on February 18th? So hearing none, let me comments. You know, the way that organizations function and work, it means they have to have good operation, good governance. And that means that in terms of how we operate, have to operate according to standards. I mentioned earlier, operating in accordance with the statutes, operating in accordance with the bylaws of what it does. What I like to say is our executive director works for the commission. He is the person that we look to and should look to for the operation of the organization itself. The employees within the organization report to the executive director, and that should be clearly understood. Along those lines, my request to you is that all communications from employees to the commission go through the executive director. It should go through the executive director. If you're contacted by an employee, you should refer them to the executive director. And if you need information from employees, you should funnel it through the executive director. That way we have a single point of contact to hold accountable, responsible for what takes place, what gets done, and doing that. I think it makes the work a lot easier for all of us. And there is an awful lot. You know, when I looked at the backlog of cases and looking at that and the age on them, very concerned about that. Terrence and I have already talked about that in terms of things that we need to do. But again, I think that where the commission is now is in a great place. There's a lot of hard work to be done, and it requires all of us working together, being cooperative, and doing the things that we need to do. So I would ask that, you know, the thing I talked about in terms of communication, that we observe that and follow that. So with that, there being nothing else, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your attendance today. Thanks for a great meeting, and we will be in touch with you fairly soon. I'll call you at later, Terrence, to set up so we can set up our first ad hoc committee meeting to get that work started. So thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you.